It's March 28th, 2023, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I am Gerissar, a WoW esports aficionado.
Hey guys, I'm Bigmoran, and sometimes I like to teach World of Warcraft. And today we're joined by ParadiseOne, who is a multi-glad / rank 1 hunter in WoW Arena. But I'm going to let him introduce himself. So Paradise, what are some of your accomplishments in World of Warcraft?
Hey guys, I'm ParadiseOne. Some of my accomplishments, I've been playing at a Gladiator Plus level since Miss Pandaria. I've competed in a couple of AWC tournaments, haven't really gotten too far, but I'd like to, it's a accomplishment in and of itself to me. I've been playing PvP, like I said, Miss Pandaria, and if you guys want to find me anywhere on game or on Twitch, I also do live stream. And I do a lot of viewer stuff also in LFG, so I'm sure you'll be able to see me at some point in the game.
Awesome. So, since you've been playing since, I guess, what they call the second era, Mist and Pandaria onwards, since Classic is coming, Wrath Classic is kind of hitting its later strides. Would you like to see a MOP Classic?
I would, but so one thing I will say from playing, I started the game in Wrath of the Lich King. I was very young, no good, right? But I will say that the nostalgia of playing in those classic versions of World of Warcraft, it's hard to replicate the experiences that you had back then with just a classic server. So while I did enjoy playing Wrath when it first came out, and I did enjoy playing Wrath Classic, it definitely wasn't quite the same feel. So while I would love to see a Miss Pandaria Classic, that was my favorite expansion. I'm sure a lot of people would agree it was some of the best PvP that World of Warcraft had to offer. It would still feel a little different for me personally because I had those experiences when it was current content. But as far as the state of just the PvP in general, I would 100% play it just to replay that PvP back then.
I like it. Yeah, I do have a part, like a deep set reminder, or like that the rose colored glasses or whatever for Kata, because that's when I started doing RBGs and that. But I feel that MOP for PvP would be an amazing classic experience, much better than Wrath, at least. So
Absolutely.
It's kind of funny because I know a lot of people reportedly don't like Cataclysm, but I mean, I thought it was a really good expansion for PvP. I thought it was really fun. So I think it'd be like weird because I think MOP is universally, at least for PvE and PvP, kind of more respected, or at least more nostalgic for people. But then you have like this Cataclysm expansion kind of standing in the way. So I don't know if they would ever, I have a feeling that they're not going to go beyond Wrath or Classic, but who knows? I mean, I'd like to see, I'd like to play Cata Classic, but I don't think many other people would. Um, and,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
it seems like an obstacle that they'd somehow have to deal with, because I think Cata was the expansion where everything started to, like, sub numbers started to go down. You hit the peak in Wrath, and then everything kind of trickled down from there. So
Yeah, I think the problem with Classic is that because they went back and redid the whole world, and it changed a lot of the world stuff, it killed that classic era that we've just experienced once again, right? So, oh, it's interesting, but we're not here to really talk about nostalgia. I think we are really here to talk about hunters, which we're going to get to. But as always, we like to do the need, greed, and pass, which is a great little icebreaker. So let's do that segment and see what Big has come up with us this week.
This likely won't be a clean fight, so keep your distance, eh?
All right, Big. So, as always, there's the three options for a scenario, and we have to pick. Well, you'll also join in. Just a quick reminder: those sitting at home right now, or those sitting in chat, by all means, play along. And if you're listening to the audio afterwards, hop on over to the Discord. We'll have a thread over there, and we can hear what your thoughts are. But on to you, Big. What's the scenario this week?
So apparently, what I've been told is that Red Paladins are pretty good right now. It seems to be the general feeling of the community. I don't know if that's true, but there's been some suggestions on how to potentially change Reds to be more in line with other DPS. So we have to figure out how to nerf Red Paladin, and we can do that in a few different ways. One of the suggestions that's been thrown out there for the community is to redesign Judgment Dispel. So Red Paladins have an ability, or I'm sorry, a PvP talent. Whenever they press Judgment, it dispels a magic, disease, and poison effect off of nearby party members, any party member within their aura, and that's pretty good, especially considering they have 2 charges of Judgment, and this interaction does work with Divine Toll. So we could redesign Judgment Dispel as one option to nerf Red Paladin. The second thing we can do is possibly nerf some of their defensives, because they got a few defensive buffs in the 10.0.7 patch, including the ability now to press their one of their main defensive cooldowns, Divine Protection, while stunned. And another change that we could make for Ret Paladins is to increase the cooldown of wings. Because, again, with the patch, the cooldown of Avenging Wrath Might, I believe, which is one of their Avenging Wrath variations, got reduced to 1 minute. So we can either redesign Judgment Dispel, we can nerf some of their defensives, or we can nerf some of their offensive cooldowns. So one of those we have to need, one of those we have to greed, one of those we have to pass. And I'm going to pass this question along to Paradise. Which one would you choose to nerf first?
So I'm a hunter, and a lot of my class revolves around my freezing trap, which is a strong, crowd control effect. And since Judgment Dispel is in the game, that kind of ruins getting a trap. So in a slightly biased fashion, I'm going to need redesign Judgment Dispel for that reason. And it's not even just for hunters. I think that Judgment Dispel screws over a lot of classes' control, a lot of their damage done. It's in desperate need of a redesign. How they would go about redesigning it, I don't know, but it needs to change. So I would need the redesigned Judgment Dispel. I would greed the wing CD increase. I think that having 1 minute wings in alignment with a lot of other offensive abilities, being able to tab between different targets and force a whole bunch of defensive cooldowns every minute is just far too strong. And while I do think that not walling while stunned is a good change, out of these three, I'm gonna have to pass on that one as the lesser of the 3 evils.
Very nice. And Garrissar, what about you? What are your thoughts on how to nerf Red Paladins?
So what you don't know is I have a paladin that I've been playing as a prop one, and I've been doing mythic pluses with it. And with all this stuff, I've been really kind of tempted to become a ret paladin and just go with this. So I kind of don't want any of these. But I guess if I had to choose, I guess on the other side, thinking about somebody who's competing against a ret paladin, I'm actually going to need the wall while stunned, because nothing's more annoying than thinking you almost got the paladin and then they bubble and hearth, and that really kind of sucks. So I think I'd rather need that, just because it has much more connotation outside of just arena, right? And then I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna have greed on the redesign of the Judgment Dispel. It is very strong, admittedly, handy when it's on your side of the team, but when you're competing against, when you're trying to work against that, and just watching a Judgment and some ability just get rid of a bunch of the stuff that you need to then actually do more damage sucks. So I'll go with that, and then I'm gonna have to pass on the wings CD increase. Although that would also it'd be nice to not see a paladin be able to pop wings every minute.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I'm going to need on the Judgment Dispel. I think, just now that I think about it more, if that wasn't baked into a rotational ability and maybe was a standalone sort of active ability instead, or if it was tied into something else, like maybe a spender, not a builder, maybe that would be a bit more fair. But I do think just the raw efficiency of being able to dispel with a rotational ability is insane. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna definitely need on nerfing Judgment Dispel, especially now since I was telling Paradise, I've been playing Mage a little bit now, and
Yep.
these past few weeks in Solo Shuffle have been brutal because it's like you land your sheep and it doesn't matter, and so you're just running around as a mage the entire game, just not feeling like a mage. You're feeling more like, I don't know, a running simulator, pressing pressing instance while you just run across the map.
Oh, so you pretend to be a
Um,
shaman.
it just, yeah, you're pretending to be something. I don't know what. I don't know how you describe how to play mage right now. It's just you literally just don't stop moving and you don't cheap
Uh,
unless it will stick, which is very rare when there's a red paladin in the lobby.
yeah.
Anyway, I think I would actually greed on. So I think we all had different answers. I'm actually going to
Yeah.
greed on nerfing the their defensives, and the reason being is I do think it's interesting, and I think it kind of fits in with the Ret Paladin theme to be like this holy avenger who's like really, really scary and has these scary damage cooldowns. And I think that's kind of cool with the class. And I always kind of like the fact that Ret Paladin seemed a bit squishy.
Mhm.
It seemed a bit, more balanced and on theme. And so I'm actually gonna nerf their defensives a bit and keep the 1 minute wings. Even though I do think 1 minute wings is pretty insane, I don't think it's necessarily that far-fetched. I mean, I think maybe the duration is a bit absurd. I think it's 23 seconds. So it's like they have 33% uptime on their main offensive, but
Mhm.
compare that to something like Warbreaker. Like Warbreaker is a really good cooldown, but it's not, it's not as flashy as something like Wings, even though they kind of do the same thing in many ways.
True.
So I think keep their damage high, make their defensive slightly worse, and then just somehow gut or completely redesign Judgment as well. That'd be how I do it.
Just got it. Just got it.
Just got it. Yeah,
All
get
right.
rid of it.
Well, hopefully, I'd like to hear what the community, the rest of the community thinks. I suspect from just off gut feeling, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to need on the Judgment Dispel redesign because that is pretty strong. In the meantime, though, let's see what we got for upcoming WoW PvP events.
Get in there and fight! Stop hiding!
All right. So, as always, we got the boilerplate stuff straight from Blizzard. We got the MDI Grand Finals starting this weekend on the 31st of March. And then followed behind that is going to be the AWC Gauntlet for the 7th of April, followed shortly after by the Grand Finals on the 8th and the 9th. So that should be a very interesting tournament. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, considering the talk that everybody has about Ret Paladin, and the chances are that we'll see a number of Ret Paladins. Do you think we're going to see as many assassination rogues there, Big?
Oh, I mean, if Red Paladins are still good, then we're going to see zero assassination rogues, I bet. Um, I don't. I mean, apparently sub rogues are pretty bad too right now. So I don't. I don't know. Seems like there's just a bad meta for like rogues, demon hunters, you know, shamans. I think it's just a rough meta for very specific classes right now. Ellie shamans, I should clarify.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, ugh, I, Paradise probably knows more about the meta than I do as far as like what's good right now. But
Play
uh,
anything that synergizes with a ret is doing pretty good.
yeah, and it seems like Fist Weavers and Resto Shamans are the big healers at
Yeah.
the moment. And I mean, oh my gosh, that is a very oppressive healer if you can't do anything about them.
Yeah.
That's a very frustrating spec to deal with. So I think we're gonna have a pretty interesting tournament if there's no changes, for
It'll be
sure.
interesting.
And
I I was wondering what's Cupid Cleave like right now with the Hunter Paladin. Does that synergize well,
It's
or is it?
oh yeah, it's a very strong BM hunter, ret paladin with a fist weaver or an arshaman or an ardruid, I believe. I would say are the top three healers for it. Very, very
Nice.
strong.
Ooh. Well, hopefully we see some Cupid Cleave. I do enjoy watching that that play. A little bit more than Ret Rogue. That I don't think we'll see Ret Rogue though. We'll see.
Probably not.
A couple other events I'd like to highlight. There's the Raider IO and Oasis. They're doing the Mythic plus Keystone Builders tournament. So this is a tandem between the two organizations. More information can be found on Raider IO or again over at the Oasis Discord. But just for dates, this is going to be starting very shortly with, I think, signups end here. They ended. Blah, 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 blah. Crowdfunding is opened. Registration opens at the end of the month here on the 31st, and that closes on the 14th of April. We'll see qualifiers shortly after that, with the actual final tournament the 28th to the 30th of April. And last but not least, just one other one. I guess I have this kind of backwards in time. We have the Armed Forces Dungeon League. So if anybody doesn't know, this is a Mythic Plus tournament, but it's with organizations or teams that are strictly out of the Armed Forces, both U.S. and international. Mostly it's U.S. though, and former. I think there might be a veteran team this year. So that's happening on the 7th to the 9th, the same weekend as the AWC. So if you like PvE, PvP dungeon running rather than actually arena, or you get a little tired of watching some of the damping games, you can watch that instead. There you go. I think that's it for the events that we're aware of. I think we'll run into the subject of analysis and start picking Paradise's brains on BM hunters.
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
All right. Okay, Paradise.
Hello.
Talk to it. You're like, oh no, they're gonna start. No, seriously though, BM hunters. I think so. In Shadowlands, I think survival and marksman seem to have been some of the better of the more popular specs, but BM seems to have been doing very well here in season 1, unless I'm mistaken. I guess just what's the difference? What has made BM hunters so good this season here?
Well, actually, in Shadowlands, BM is also very, very strong.
Oops, my bad.
No, it's okay. So most of the reason that BM is really strong right now is just the way that the spec is designed, how you do your damage. It's a lot of emphasis on your pets more than it ever has been. And being so strong with your pets, it's a lot of high sustained damage with good burst, but it's mostly unavoidable because the pets are on you most of the time. Whereas, say your character in Shadowlands, at least, a lot of your damage was from you cobra shotting, which is something your character has to press. Whereas now it's all your pets and kill command, which is you can kind of just do that from any point in the map. So it's very high unavoidable damage is really the strength of BM right now.
All right.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because if you play against a BM hunter, it doesn't seem like they are doing anything.
Yeah, you just kind of feel like you're dead to nothing, but
Yeah, it's like there's damage and it's kind of obscure of where it's coming from compared to like a Marks Hunter where it's very obvious. They plant their feet, cast aim shot, or a Survival Hunter. They're throwing their grenades at you and meleeing you in your face. It's like a BM Hunter. It's like you're dying slowly and you can't really figure out why. And I know one thing too though that they did redesign in Shadowlands, apart from Cobra Shot being less important or maybe even obsolete, is didn't they kind of give you some buff maintenance with barb shot? Isn't that more important nowadays?
no, that's been important for I want to say since BFA since they introduced that.
Okay.
It's yeah, so I could go over that now if you want, but just when you barb
Sure.
shot, you get a stack for your pet.
Okay.
It increases your pet's attack speed. It lasts the same duration as your barb shot. It stacks up to 3 times. So by maintaining that buff, your pet is auto attacking 90% faster. So the difference between a BM hunter's pet doing less and more damage is how long you can keep that buff up, which is also part of the very high, what feels like coming from nowhere damage is just your pet getting more damage just standing on you the whole game.
Sweet. And I
Hmm.
know, wasn't there some quality of life improvements with pets dying less often in 10.0.7, or am I mistaken? 'Cause I think that kind of was the problem, at least in the early expansion, is pets would die, but weren't there some bug fixes or something that made that less likely to happen, or am
Uh,
I
I
thinking of something
wanna
else?
say not in this patch, the 10.0.5, they
Hmm.
increase the pet takes less damage from cleave. They
Oh, okay,
changed
that's it.
Roar of Sacrifice to where previously when you would put sacrifice on somebody, that target would be immune to critical strikes, but 20% of their damage your pet would take. That was kind of the trade, but now it's 10. So
Hmm.
in earlier in the expansion, you could put Roar of Sacrifice on somebody, and your pet would just get cleaved down and die super fast. So that's a thing. And then just one thing as a part of Dragonflight in general is on their hunter tree, not the spec tree, the general tree. There's a talent called Wilderness Medicine that makes your men pet heal 50% more and occasionally dispel a dot from your pet. So all three of those things makes it a little easier to keep your pet alive on your own. Obviously, if a team is really wants to focus down your pet, you're gonna have to do something extra. But it definitely keeps it up sustained a little bit longer without any kind of external help.
Okay. Hmm. Um. So since your pets are really a lot of your damage, though, how susceptible is your damage output to pet control? So, like against a mage that's able, a frost mage, or uh, I guess maybe a druid or something, or anybody that can really control your pets and stop them from being able to stay on target.
So that would be an issue if BM didn't have tools also to counteract that. So obviously you have your pet freedom ability, which freedom's not only you or the target you put it on, but also puts freedom on your pet. So you can use that. Say if mage is, frosting over your pets, you can use that to get it out. Also, if your pet is in any kind of CC except I believe Cyclone, I don't think it works on Cyclone. When you Bestial Wrath, which is your main offensive cooldown, it's essentially a trinket for your pet. It'll trinket your pets out of root stuns, fears, whatever.
Neat.
So if you against things where that is an issue, for example, a mage, you can save your freedom and your bestial wrath to a point to where they can't control it, and you can get the maximum damage out.
Nice. Yeah, I figured, but have to ask the question
Yeah,
because.
yeah.
Well, then let's really dig into this. I mean, it's talents is where we really find the nuances of the spec. Um, so why don't we dig into this? Obviously, not all of the talents because we don't have time for that. Uh, I say this all the time, but I'm going to say it again. Let's talk. What's the important ones? What are the maybe the capstones, or other specific talents that are, either important because they're a must-have, or are important because you can do this or do that, and there's a nuance there that perhaps would be a good discussion for us.
Sure. So as far as regular hunter talents, just the general hunter tree, a couple talents that I would say are absolutely mandatory, or there's two options, but the one you need to take. So on the bottom left, the choice is Killer Instinct or Alpha Predator. Alpha Predator is always going to be the correct choice. Kill Command is so much of your damage. Having two charges and then making it deal more damage is just going to outweigh the 50% increased damage when they're low health. So Alpha Predator is a very important talent, as well as Steel Trap. Steel Trap is a physical root, can't
Mhm.
be dispelled, that puts a little dot on them. And there's multiple uses for Steel Trap. Obviously, you can root somebody running at you to peel them off, but you can also use it, for example, rooting a healer out of line. They can't dispel themselves. You can root an evoker in the middle of the map, and since they have a shorter range, it forces the melee or whatever to come back to them, or maybe they don't notice and then they extend, you get more cooldowns.
Mhm.
So Steel Trap is very important to have. As far as your stun and scatter, the intimidation stun is almost always the best one to run, since other than that, you don't have much of a stun on your own. I
Huh.
almost always run scatter shot just because binding shot's okay if there's a another BM hunter, a demo lock, just to stop all those pets. But I find more value out of scatter shot.
Interesting.
And so going over to the BM side of things, you don't actually do much on the right side. So if you look at the build, the middle is more of your cooldown. So you got Bestial Wrath, Barbed Wrath, Scent of Blood, things that buff your damage cooldown. And on the bottom, Piercing Fangs, which is the one you probably want to take. They just nerfed that a little bit, but it is still going to be the option you're going to want to take. On the left side, you have Stomp and things to buff your Dire Beast. Those are important to take. However, on the right side, it's very interesting. You have all of these abilities and talents to buff your damage as a player, so your Cobra shots and whatnot. But unfortunately, it's just not good compared to the other stuff. So they have a lot of cool talents like Aspect of the Wild. You have on the bottom Bloody Frenzy or Wild Instincts, Master Handler, Snakebite, which do stuff with your Cobra shot, but they're just not even close to as good as the other side.
Understood.
And I guess one of the advantages, right, of playing with a build that primarily does damage with your pets, we kind of about this before, is you don't have to really be pushed in too much, right? Like you can play very safe if you want as a BM hunter and just kind of hang out near a pillar. And is that kind of the advantage of playing with a lot of these pet talents, is you can afford to be a bit more safe?
Yeah, so playing with the pet talents, right now it just does more damage than the Cobra Shot builds for one. For two, like you said, you can do all of your damage from the pillar. And for three, you can also say you're getting ran at by two melee. If you are marksman or survival, you can't really just stand there and do your full damage if you have to kite. As BM, you can do all of your damage while kiting, get your full value out of your damage while just running away. Because I want to say 90% of your damage comes from your pets. So you're just running away, having your pets destroy them while they're trying to hit you.
Seems pretty good in this meta where you have a lot of like melee
Yeah.
I
running
kind of
at
did the
you
same
all
thing.
the time. Yeah, right now I think the especially in solo shuffle, you have to just move a lot. And if you're not moving a lot, you're gonna suffer. You have to just find these small little ways to avoid as much damage as possible. I think that's probably why BM is so good. It just does a really good job at avoiding damage while also just kind of laying on huge sustained damage the entire time. One thing I wanted to ask about, because it is kind of a deceptive talent, is Wailing Arrow. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that doesn't work in PvP, right? Because it looks like it would be an appealing option having another silence, but it just doesn't work.
It does not work. The silence does not work in PvP. And
Hmm.
I don't think there's any spec of hunter for where I would take Wailing Arrow for PvP. I know it's pretty good in Mythic Plus and whatnot for that reason, for the silence, but the silence does not work in PvP. So
Right. And then another talent that I wanted to go over that is kind of maybe a bait as well is Sentinel Owl, which prior to the expansion being released, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, like every hunter will be able to hit through line of sight, and that's insane. But isn't it kind of a clunky, right? You can't really use it too well. And I'm guessing as BM, you don't really need it for your own damage. Is that correct?
So as far as Sentinel Owl, when I play Marks and Survival, I 100% take it. It is not as strong as the previous version. It's a smaller circle, and the Curian arrow, which is what it's replicating, if you were in the circle at any point, it would linger for 4 seconds after leaving the circle. So you didn't even really need to be in it. You just had to kind of tag them with it, and then you would get the value. But Sentinel Owl, you have to physically be in the circle in order to get the effect. So for survival and marksman, I still run it. You can get good value out of it shooting through the wall, or you can even do some crazy things. You can feral leap through the wall, you can harpoon through the wall. It's got some different, uses. For BM, the build I'm running right now, I don't take it. I'm sure that there are builds that do take it just to hit people through the wall, but like I said, if for BM you're doing a very large amount of your damage, doesn't even matter if you're in their line or not. So I don't really know how much value you would get putting a point into that and having to put two into Born to be Wild in order to get to that. But yeah, so it's not really a bait in the sense that it does have bring value, more so to the other two specs, but personally as BM it wouldn't be as valuable.
Gotcha. And one final thing, because admittedly, I did not really know this ability existed until a few weeks into the expansion, and I was embarrassed to learn that. And I was embarrassed to learn that hunters have a shield wall now with survival of the fittest. It's not necessarily the best shield wall, but it is on, it is on the talent tree. And I'm guessing if you pick the talent below it, that increases the effectiveness of survival of the fittest. So you have a 40% wall.
Yeah, so it only lasts 6 seconds, but having it be a 40% as opposed to 20%, you almost always take that option. I haven't found a situation where the other one is much better. So yeah, you take the I believe it's called nature's endurance. It makes your
Hmm.
survival of the fittest go from a 20% wall to a 40% wall, which like you said, it's a short duration, it's a long cooldown, but just having that extra damage reduction would give you enough time to say your healers in a CC or whatever, give you enough time to get them out to use something else. A 20% wall on a hunter doesn't seem very strong since hunters are really good at kiting, but when you catch them, if you get them in a stun, they're pretty squishy. So if you
Right.
don't
You have to
have a
do.
healer to help you, right, having that 40% for a short duration, I feel would be stronger.
Seems like kind of a key separation point between like average hunters and good hunters is how well they kind of preemptively avoid the damage, right? It's you kind of have to do a lot more on the end of avoiding damage first rather than like trading cooldowns. Because I mean, your cooldowns are okay, but they're not strong enough to stay in and just tank a bunch of damage. Is that the case? You just kind of have to be a bit more preemptive with how you play.
Yes and no. So it's in the current meta with red paladins and how they have right freedom that they can put on their partner that makes them faster. Inevitably, people are going to catch you. It's not as easy as it was to just kind of stand 40 yards away and just trade things to get away from them. But it's important that you use your mobility to trade with their gap closers to maintain that distance. So one thing that I know on my stream, I've been doing a thing where people send me gameplay and I try to give them feedback on what they can do differently and whatnot. And one thing I notice is a lot of less experienced hunters will use their mobility either randomly or just offensively, and then they get caught, and now they're just stuck face tanking two melee DPS, can't get away. So
Mhm.
it's a matter of preemptively knowing when damage is coming and making sure you're in a position to where they can't just immediately get on you, or if you it's inevitable with these rep paladins to where they're going to catch you, how to rotate your mobility and control to be able to take as little damage as you can in those CC windows.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's kind of the pain point right now for casters is like, or any range DPS is melee are so mobile that you cannot like mess
Yeah.
up that mobility war. If you flub your mobility, you're stuck there taking a bunch of damage, and it feels bad. Especially now again with the freedom and rest running at you the whole.
Yeah.
And I
Cool.
guess now I think we've covered all the important talents, right? And it's good. Is there anything else that we need to cover as far as talents are concerned on either the hunter or BM tree?
Not really. There are some talents that are mandatory, but they're not. There's not really much of an option in between. So, for
Hmm.
example, animal companion, you get two pets. Kind of need that.
Yep.
Um, One's on the top, barb shot, right? You got to take barb shot. As far as I think we covered most of, like you said, the bait talents, what seems good, what might not be good, and then the different ones where you have two options. I think I covered those. So
Mhm.
other than that, these are just general hunter builds you can copy from other players, or I don't know if you guys want to link to a build you could post somewhere that has all the talents you need. The other thing with BM hunters, as far as PvP, is there's not much variation in the builds. I know some classes you can run this or that or whatnot. There's not much variation in the BM hunter build. It's pretty straightforward all across the board. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a few specs like that where if you check Murloc or whatever, that's like all orange. There's
Yeah.
like no one doing anything different. I think
yeah.
Frostmage is like that too. Frostmage, at least last patch, had like one build.
Um,
Sweet. I guess.
I just
Oh,
have
go
one.
ahead.
Is there any nuances like if you're against a caster cleave versus against a melee cleave or a hybrid? Is there like pick this versus that for maybe the difference between scatter or I don't know some other talents just to because X works better against casters versus the melee?
For BM, not really. Like I said,
Okay.
there's limited situations you might take binding shot instead of scatter, but
Okay.
I still personally don't really change. Having intimidation stuns is too strong to not have scatter shot, even if you're not using it on a healer. Right, you can use it to peel yourself. You can use it to cross the second target, whether it's a caster team, a melee team. It's a range attack. It's still gonna find value in that. I think the only variation more so comes from honor talents based on what you're fighting, not so much the regular tree talents.
Okay. Well, let's get into those then. That sounds like a perfect segue.
Perfect.
So I guess out of all these talents, like there's quite a bit. Um, are there any that are just tell everybody to avoid, or is there enough variation that there's some that always have value?
Well, the ones so that will always have value survival tactics is you can't just assume you have two talents because you there's no reason to not run survival tactics. It's just far too strong. It what it does is it will dispel all magic effects from yourself and reduce damage you take by 90% for a second and a half. Now, while why that's very strong is obviously you can dispel yourself. So if you get you will take the backlash effects, but there if it does damage, it'll be reduced. So, for example, if
Yeah.
you're fighting a death or an affliction lock, you will dispel all your dots. You will take the UA damage backlash, but it's only going to do 10% of the damage. If you fight a shadow priest, you'll dispel all your dots, but you will get BT feared. But you can also use it in other ways. You can use it to dispel roots off yourself. And the other thing about it is that it works on things that have already been casted. So, for example, aspect of the turtle, if you somebody casts a chaos bolt on you and then you use turtle, the chaos bolt will go through the turtle. Whereas survival tactics works based on whenever you use it. So, if somebody casts a glacial spike or a chaos bolt and whatnot, and then you use feign death with that talent, that incoming spell will be reduced by 90%. So there's a
Ooh.
very different many different uses for it, and it's very, very strong when you use it properly.
What's the cooldown on that?
On Feign Death, it's 30 seconds.
No, on survival.
Right,
Survival
it's
tactic, it's 30 seconds. It's when you feign death.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all right.
Such a
Um,
noob sometimes. All right.
no, yeah. And
That's a
then
pretty so a 90% reduction for a second and a bit
1.5 seconds, yes.
every 30 seconds.
Every 30 seconds, yeah. And it also dispels all magic effects from you.
That sounds
it's kind
pretty
of
OP.
like it was a carryover from the legendary last expansion, Craven,
Oh god,
but
that thing was so I missed
Yeah.
that.
the most broken legendary I think in the game, in my opinion.
It was so it was 15 seconds and it dispelled everything.
Yep.
So not just
Yeah,
magic effects, bleeds, diseases, curses, everything.
somehow it got you out of Spirit Bastion. Like
Oh yeah,
it
that
was
that
very
was
weird.
way too strong.
I remember
So
when we
just
talked
kind
to
of
Bicknick about that. It was yeah. I was like, all right, that's it. I'm re-rolling.
yeah, this is the anti survival tactics is still really good, right? But
Hmm.
like nowhere near as good as Craven. Like that was
Craven was
Yeah.
just not that wasn't fair.
not fair.
Okay.
Yep.
And
So sorry. So let's not talk about the expansion that shall not be named. Uh,
Yep.
but instead, so survival tactics, that's a set and done. What are the other two slots? What's the options?
Okay, so like you said, talents that you never want to use ever are Dire Beast Hawk and Dire Beast Basilisk. I don't know why they're there because they don't do anything. They're absolutely terrible. if you want to test them out, like you'll see for yourself, Dire Beast Basilisk, the thing spawns maybe 10 yards away from your target. It takes a good 5 or 6 seconds to get to the target, and then it melees them for like 6k. So I don't know what they were thinking with that. Dire Beast Hawk also just does such little damage. So never ever take those over anything else. They're awful. As far as your second and third talent, though, ones you do want to take against Resto Druids, Tranquilizing Darts is very strong. It dispels, it's built into your Trank Shot, which will dispel a magic and an enrage effect, but it also reduces the duration of their beneficial effects by up to 24 seconds. So it doesn't get everything, but it can reduce if they have low duration on their hots, there's a
Mhm.
good chance it'll dispel all of them. So, and it also makes the druid have to keep reapplying his hots, so it makes him use more mana. So
Okay.
tranquilizing darts, really good against our druids. As far as other talents, Roar of Sacrifice is a given. Makes your whoever you put the Roar of Sacrifice on immune to critical strikes. Is a very strong defensive cooldown. I run that almost every game. Dragon Scale Armor makes damage over time effects against you do 20% less. So I only run that really into double dot classes. So like Shadow Priest Affliction Lock, that's a good
Mhm.
use for that. And the other talent that I would say is baseline would be Chimera Sting. What that does is it's a 3-part ability on a minute cooldown. It puts up a 90% movement speed reduction. Then 3 seconds later, silences the target. And then 3 seconds later, reduces the damage and healing they do. So you want to use that in tangent with, say, another CC in order to line it up. So for example, if you can stun a target, put the Chimera Sting over it. So when the stun is ending, they come out of the stun and now they're silenced. The second part of it kicks in.
Mhm.
So the three talents that I run baseline are Survival Tactics, Roar of Sacrifice, and Chimera Sting. And like I said, those few other talent options I'll adjust according to what I'm fighting with either Tranquilizing Darts, Dragon Scale Armor. The one more thing I do want to note is Diamond Ice, which
Yep.
makes your freezing trap a 5 second cooldown, but it's undispellable. So I really don't like running it. It really nerfs your trap. And people will say fighting a Ret Paladin right now with how strong they are with your dispel, oh, you just got to cover the Ret Paladin, right? But in some situations, I just feel like it's so frustrating to try to cover the ret to the point where you get any value out of it. And sometimes I just say, screw it. I'm just running Diamond Dice. Now they now they can't get him out of the trap no matter what. So that's just something to look forward to. I know I fought a double Ret Paladin team, and I just locked in Diamond Ice. It's just there's no point to try at that point. So just that's just something I also wanted to note.
Yeah, and
One
that's good. I think that's an important difference. I wonder if that's actually pretty good because if you diamond ice and then they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to judge and get myself out of this," and it's like, "Judge, why isn't this working? Judge." You know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the idea. It's just really lame. It makes your trap very, a lot less effective. But
yeah,
if you're having trouble with your team or with your comp covering the ret properly to the point where he's able to just judge the spell even half the trap left, then you might as well just run Diamond Dice at that point.
that makes sense. Eh,
One thing I'm curious about, by the way, there's that talent Interlope, which I know people don't play right now, but it's actually getting buffed in the next patch. I don't know if you've seen the buffs to it, but Interlope right now is kind of like a janky spell reflection sort of that you can use with your pet. And it says, next hostile spell on the target will cause hostile spells for the next 3 seconds to be redirected to your pet. I think it's that it's getting buffed in the
Yeah,
next patch
it
to
is.
now take 3 spells. So it's kind of like you can make your pet into a grounding totem. Is that something you might be consider? That's something you might consider playing next patch at all?
So I've actually messed around with it in Arena, and the real problem with it isn't. So the two problems I have with it is that in order for it to function, it has to be within 10 yards of the target. So
Hmm.
I haven't when I tested it, I wasn't using it on myself because if I'm just using it to protect myself, now my pet's gonna die. So I don't know how the value is kind of iffy. You can also use it to eat traps. So if you put it on your healer, the pet will eat the next trap or the next polymorph. But again, the downside is right now your pet has to be really close to the healer for that to work.
Hmm.
But apparently next patch it's becoming a 20-yard range. So I could
Yeah.
see some value in that. I don't know how much you would value it have over some of the other talents, but it definitely could be something that more people would use. Although one thing I also want to note is I love Interlope in rated battlegrounds. You can for ninjing bases, it's so fun going up to say a boomkin, right? And they're sitting their base, and then you just like scatter them for 3 seconds, put up interlope, and just watching them come out of the scatter and just trying to moonfire you, and it's just hitting your pet, and then you get the base. It's actually I found a lot of success taking bases in battlegrounds with interlope.
I didn't even think about that.
It's
That's
so
insane.
fun. Yeah, I get
And
you know, I
those,
get so many whispers. What the heck was that?
yeah, though, there's so many times in RPGs where like, is this person cheating? Like, what the heck's going on? But it's always some obscure talent that like no one like knows about, and I
Yeah.
could see that being like insane. That's
But
goofy.
but back to that point, yeah, as of right now, I don't think Interlope has much of a place in Arena. Next patch, maybe. It just depends on what other honor talents we have available, what the meta is, and whatnot.
All right.
Gotcha.
I like it. Um, Talking about next patch and this patch, just kind of with this patch we got tier set. Well, it looks like all of Dragonflight we're gonna have different tier sets. But what's this tier set looking like? Is it worthwhile for a beam hunter? Do you need a 2-piece or 4-piece? Like, what's going on there?
So in Arena, you want the 4-piece, 100%. You want to take. I'm trying to remember. It's all the pieces except for the helmet. You take the 4-piece and then you use the haste first helmet. So what that does is the 2 set just increases your damage and has an increased chance to reset one of your cooldowns, which is great. And the 4 set increases your barb shot damage and makes your next kill command do more damage. So it synergizes really well in you have you have 2 charges of kill command, 2 charges of kill shot. Your talents make your barb shot have a chance to reset the cooldown on your kill command. You have cooldowns to get your barb shots back. So you're essentially just barb shot, kill shot. You rotate them, makes your kill command do more damage. You have uptime on your pet's frenzy, like I was talking about earlier. When you barb shot, your pet has a stack that increases its attack speed. So having the 4 set just kind of bakes additional value into your rotation.
Yeah. What's the? Actually, I'm just kind of curious. What's the versatility loss? Is there much of a reverse loss switching out tier pieces from your PvP set?
So if you run the 4 set for BM, 2 of the pieces do not have versatility on them,
Yeah. Okay.
which is it sucks, but it's better than not having the 4 set for sure. 4 set
Yeah.
trumps that.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess the amount of the damage output, and I mean, if you're doing this properly, you're way in the corner behind a pillar while your pets are doing the damage. So it's not like you really need the versatility for damage reduction or for healing boost, right?
Yeah, exactly. The versatility, it's one of the best stats for BM, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
it, there's no other way to get 4 set without sacrificing at least 2 pieces with versatility. So it's just how it is. I wish Blizzard would implement a way to choose stats on set pieces, but since they haven't, that's just what we got to work with.
Okay. Um, Big. I know you like pets. Like you got your own cat there and that. Do you wanna talk about pets with hunters?
Yeah, I know pets these days are pretty standard. From my understanding, right, you pretty much want to be playing with an undead raptor, ideally. Is that the case, or am I mistaken on that?
Yes and no. So previously, you could run an undead raptor in like almost every scenario, but with the change in the meta, you don't want to run an undead raptor, and the reason
Because the
behind
paladins
that
stun it.
is because whenever a red paladin presses Wake of Ashes, your pet is now stunned. So the reason behind the undead raptor previously is you could not polymorph it, you could not hibernate it, you couldn't scare beast it, so you had that extra protection on your pet. But now, since it's all red paladins, it's better to run a non-undead pet. So I just run a regular raptor, not undead.
And you choose the raptor because it has a mortal strike effect. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's actually a great website. I don't know if I'm allowed to shout it out right now, but
Yeah, no, go for it.
it's called wow-petopia.com. And what that has is it has every single pet class ability combination model in the entire game. So you can look at that website. It doesn't have to be a raptor that you use. You just generally want a pet that is cunning, which means it has the freedom ability, active ability, and its special ability is mortal wounds or the healing reduction. So if you go to that
Yeah.
website, you can actually go in a chart, see which pet is cunning and has mortal wounds, and you can go through all the pets there, and you can find one that you like the most. I think it's rodents, raptors. There's a couple of them, and you can find a model you like or whatever. They all function the same. So
You know what? Why I see these little rodents. You can play with these little mice in the. I don't know if this is this patch, but there's some cute little mice you can play with. Like I've
What?
never seen a mouse. Yeah, I've never seen a mouse pet. And there's otters. Man, like
yeah, it's
beavers. I would be
yeah.
so mad if I lost to a beaver, man.
Yeah,
I don't know. They
it's
got huge teeth.
rodents, hyenas, and raptors are the ones you're gonna want to get. I'm just
All
telling
right. Not a river
Eh,
beast. I think a river beast would be worse.
so that's the other. So a river beast is a tenacity pet, which means
Shut up. Oh.
instead of freedom, you get a increased stamina, and the pet's ability is essentially what Desperate Prayer does for priests. It heals you and gives you an increased health pool,
Mm.
and that's not bad to run. But again, you lose the freedom for you and your pet. So, for example, so you wouldn't be able to kite melee as well. You wouldn't be able to get your pet out of novas and whatnot. So that's not a terrible option for other hunter specs, but for BM, I find that having that freedom is very important.
Huh.
and
I-
you
yeah.
don't need an exotic pet these days. That's a old thing, right?
Yeah,
Like
so exotic pets, what they do is they do the same thing that the other pets in their school or family would do, but they also have an extra exotic family ability. And all of the exotic family abilities for PvP are pretty mediocre. The only one that has any value is the worm. For RBGs, it like does an AoE so you can protect a base better. But all the other exotic abilities are like for this one increases their movement speed, or the Devil's Sword, it can eat a dead corpse and heal itself if it's not in combat. It's nothing great, nothing special. It doesn't really matter that much.
that's too bad. Because I would like to play with a devil sword. That sounds fun. But
Okay.
I'm surprised I haven't seen more rodents. I want there to be a rodent meta. I'm
So,
glad that red pies are strong. It's buffed the rodents. That's good.
Mortai is saying in chat he thinks that's 10.1, but he's not 100% sure, but he thinks that might be next patch.
Yeah, I'm looking at the website, and it does say at the top upcoming looks, so it does not appear that the mice are in the game yet.
Okay.
But soon, just
All
you
right.
wait.
Quick question, just because I mean, in Dragonflight there was some new animals that we've seen that we hadn't seen for a long time. I mean, we got ducks, we got giant frogs, we got horse-sized ducks, and those flame slugs and that. Uh, are those now tameable as well? Or is this something that is even worthwhile for PvP? And maybe not even just arena, but just PvP in general? Or are those just like kind of fun to have, but again, they don't really meet any of these requirements?
I believe that you can tame. I don't know if you can tame ducks. I know you can tame the snails. I've
Yeah.
seen people with the snails, but like I said, if you go to that website and you just go to family's abilities or whatever, you
Yeah.
can see all the different things that you want. And from the looks of it, right now, if it's not in that mortal wounds category, you could play with it. You might not be. I mean, if you're just say world PvPing, then and just having a casual, good time, it doesn't really matter what pet you have, right? But if you're
Yeah.
trying to do something more competitive, more constructed, like arena or whatnot, then I would suggest just sticking to the hyena, raptor, rodent, or anything else with that mortal wounds, which does not look like any of those new pets fall under.
Okay. That's stupid. I feel like I missed an opportunity there. All right. You mentioned before stats versatility is actually quite important as a BM hunter. I think that's standard for anybody in PvP. Versatility is always the number one stat. What's the other? What else are you looking for stats?
So verse is going to be your strongest stat, followed by haste, followed by mastery, followed by crit.
Oh, okay. I saw something somewhere where they had crit over mastery.
Maybe for PvE, I'm not sure.
That's
Um,
possible.
but I'm pretty confident with my assessment of that. There is
Okay.
actually some hunters I've seen in EU that are going verse and then mastery, and then haste then crit. I don't like that. Especially I don't know if any of you have played a class with no haste. It feels really clunky and no fun. So,
Yeah.
but my experience and most other hunters I've seen and talked to, it's verse haste and then mastery crit.
Okay. Hey, can you just what does the mastery do? Like, how does that? I'm assuming it
Mastery is
increases your
just
damage.
it's just raw pet damage.
Okay.
Increases damage, but just for your pets, not you.
Okay. That makes sense then. Yeah. So if you're doing a lot of talent change or talents to boost your pets, if you stack mastery, then that would just make it more. That makes a
Yeah,
lot
it
of
makes it
sense.
stronger. Yeah.
Yeah. I said it before, but if the game always feels like they've designed with players having a specific amount of haste, even like 20% at a minimum, just then that's about when everything starts to feel smooth. I find personally, I agree though. Like if you have zero haste, it just feels bad. Not you're like just waiting for a button to push. It's
Yeah, that's why I like the haste build over
Mhm.
mastery. I don't actually know if the mastery priority is any better or worse. There's only a
Okay.
few people that I've seen do it with success, but I mean, even if it's comparable, I would just go haste all the way. It's just way more fun to play. So,
Yeah. Is there any caps? I mean, there's the diminishing returns. I think once we hit 30%, do you just stop at 30, or are you gonna keep blowing through that anyways, knowing that it's still better than switching over to another stat?
so yeah, so there's no cap. There is, like you said, diminishing returns. At I think it's 40% crit, 30% for haste and verse, and for BM, it's about 5,400 mastery. And at that point, it's you still get value from those stats. It's just diminished, right? So you're not getting as
Mhm.
much per point as you would underneath that. So for me, in the current patch, our for PvP, our gear doesn't allow enough stats to where you really have to worry about that much. You're not having so many stats that you're like, okay, I have 45% haste, where can it doesn't really, you don't have that many stats yet. So what I do in my current gear setup is my I go to my gear with the four set. Every other piece is haste verse, and then when I gem verse haste gems. So it would be 70 verse and 33 haste, and what that gets me to is about 30% haste and around almost 30% versatility. So
Okay.
that's what I've been rocking, and I found some success with that. I'm sure there's, like I said, variations on what you can do. Some people might run more verse, some people might all in haste a little more. I don't think it's that game breaking to have those little tiny adjustments,
Mhm.
but it will be as we get more gear, stronger gear, and you'll have more stats to work with.
Okay.
I'm curious. I have a feeling they have to rework stats or something because like when I was playing on the TR, you could get up to like 40% haste with kind of like a cheeky gear set, but that's in season 1 gear, having 40% haste at, like on a druid. And I can't imagine like by the end of the expansion, maybe they're gonna have to redo
They
some
got to do
stats
something. Yeah,
because
they're
yeah,
trying to put
stats
too
are
many.
already pretty insane, and
Yeah.
I don't
I I, I
know.
I had a feeling with how much stats we were rocking just at the very beginning that whatever next expansion is going to be after Dragonflight is going to be another stat squish, just
Oh
because
yeah, for
it's
sure.
got to be. I just brain farted, and you kind of helped me remember, just talking about gems and that. We didn't talk about primordial stones with the new ring.
I don't. To my understanding, I don't know if those are those relevant in PvP because I think
From
the
what
effects are
I
nerfed by
understand, they are
75.
nerfed 75%. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
haven't personally done any testing with those, but the general opinion I've heard is they're not really like that going to be that game breaking in PvP.
Okay.
So,
So, yes, they are nerfed. The effects are nerfed by 75%, but I wasn't sure if some of them still worked well enough with your spec, if they were still worthwhile or not.
right. Honestly, I'm
Okay.
gonna be honest, I haven't looked into it that much
Not a
to
problem.
to give a educated opinion on that. There might be it depends on the item level of the gear, I think, and the stat priority. There might be, if you have, say, for a 430 item level ring with your optimal stats, and there's a ring that's like 425 with optimal stats, but you get the bonus, that might be worth just because. But I'd have to look more into it to have
Yeah.
a better
I mean,
opinion.
honestly, the ring only has stamina. It has a whack load of stamina on it, but it has nothing else on it. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well,
Okay. I
got
think I
it.
think that answers it right there. Is just 75%, haven't bothered, and stats are not really what you need. So, meh.
Mm.
and I guess are you using Lariat currently? Like, what are your two embellished pieces that you play with?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I use the crowd control reduction boots
Mm-hmm.
for it's the male boots, haste verse, and 5% reduction of crowd control. And then I use an elemental lariat for the necklace at 418 with haste verse as the stats.
Do you do the signet as well, the ring without the embellishment? Because I think a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
classes.
That's my other crafted piece is the ring with haste verse, but you can only have two embellishments. So uh
Yeah, I still need to get that that ring. I haven't gotten the because you do need that that stone or whatever to get the full.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty slow to get from just PvP.
Yeah.
Even if you're spamming wins above 2400 and threes, which I think would be the fastest way, because shuffles are, the queue times me. Even with that, they don't drop every box. I think you get a box every 4 wins and you need 10. So I think the fastest way is to do 16s, right? You get one per 16 plus
Yeah.
16. That's probably the best course of action. But
Okay. But yeah. Mythic Plus seems to be the best way to get those. It's unfortunate. Eh, what about racials? I know.
so right now, human's the best.
Yeah.
Just having the option to run two damage trinkets or a damage trinket and an emblem instead of a regular trinket because you have the human racial. So I would say human's the best. Other good races are night elf and dark iron dwarf is pretty solid. Having that racial to dispel yourself from
Hmm.
all bleeds, poisons, magic effects, and get a damage buff. Night Elf isn't a terrible option, and with next patch, I have to say Orc is probably just going to be the best race for any class that can be an Orc with how they're changing crowd control durations and how the Orc racial, while they did nerf it a little, does stack with that. So I would
Okay.
say this patch Human, next patch Orc.
Is Is Dark Iron still BIS? Yeah, even if people aren't running assassination rogues as much because of Ret?
No. So Dark Iron, it's not as strong as it was. It still gets value out of its racial. It's not
Mm.
BIS anymore. I think human is BIS as of right now,
Hmm.
but
Okay.
it's you still can get some value out of the racial. So.
Okay. It's still good against those pesky feral druids.
Yeah, stuff like barrels, even locks, anything with a
Fair,
damage over time effect, pretty
fair
much.
enough. Sorry, Big. You sounded like you're about to say something.
Oh no, how's Night Elf for hunters?
That would be my well. Those are the three races I said: is human,
Oh,
night elf,
okay.
and orc or dark iron right now. And then next patch, I would say orc.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Seems to be the answer for every single DPS.
Yeah,
Seems like
orc.
it, yeah.
Yep.
All right, all right. Um, I am gonna ask this one. I kind of always throw this one around. Is with the updates where they're adding more races to classes and that. Um, what is there a race that isn't that you think should be added to Hunter?
I think hunter can be any race except
Is it?
Drakthir.
Yes, I think hunter is the only class that can be any race.
I think warrior also.
Yeah, I knew warrior. I didn't. I thought Hunter still had a few missing.
No, well, other than the Drakthir, which can only be evoker, I think hunter can be
Yeah.
everything.
All right then.
Hey, wait, I have a question. Because I've always wondered why don't people play Torrent Hunter? I always figured that would be okay. Like if you have that additional, because every other trap is kind of awkward. You have the intim for
Because of
one,
war
and
stomp.
yeah, you could war
I
stomp
mean,
trap.
I think it could be good, but I think in the past there's just always been something better. Like
Yeah.
pre Dragonflight with orc racial and all that. Like if you're horde and you're not an orc, you're kind of trolling. Or if you're in Legion, having the human racial. If you're ally and you're not a human, you're trolling. So I mean, I'm
Mm.
sure I think there's some that you raise a good point. There's some value to that. I just think that there's other better options is all.
I know Thessia, the mage on EU, he plays Tauren mage and he's like he has a
Polys.
blast. Yeah, just
Oh man.
war stomp poly and stuff, but it's just so goofy. Anyway, I think let's move on to sort of the more meta content for
Mhm.
hunters, starting with comps. I know the 2v2 meta has been pretty standardized for a while, but what comps are you looking to play primarily in 2v2?
BM Hunter, insert healer here. Pretty much.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can make anything work to a pretty good point. Just BM Hunter, insert healer. I think that the better healer options would be the right now a Fistweaver monk or a monk running the ancient teachings melee build would be probably the better option. Resto Druid, you can never go wrong with a Resto Druid in twos. Shaman. I think the weakest healer for twos would be a Paladin BM Hunter, but
Mhm.
generally speaking, just insert a healer and you're doing great.
Sounds about right. And I know I think last time I was talking about the 2v2 meta, the Acid Rogues were dominating. I have no idea what the 2v2 meta is like right now. But I mean, shoot, maybe even Red Pallies are taking over there as well.
Oh, they're
Um,
everywhere. You can't escape them.
can't escape. And then what about 3v3? I know jungle was a big part of Hunter Comp's last patch and last expansion. What about now?
So jungle. So this expansion with the different buffs and nerfs, there's been different varieties of comps that have been good. At the start, Shadow Priest Hunter before Shadow Priest got nerfed is very strong. Then Assassin Rogue BM Hunter was good. Even sub BM Hunter was good. Jungle has always been a strong comp. But with the rep buffs, rep BM is by far BM Hunter's best comp or any Hunter's best comp. And unfortunately, I found is if I don't have a red on my team, it's just so much more frustrating to play this game. So I haven't been really queuing any threes unless I have a red on my team, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, we talked about this before like podcast started, but they're at least pre-nerf. They were probably like the one of the best, if not the best, PvP spec of all time, and definitely
Yeah.
up there. I mean, they're
Yeah.
they're pretty insane right now. And then what about RBGs? I know hunters have always kind of had an awkward spot in RBGs. They've kind of always been this thing that's kind of good, but not really good. Kind of gimmicky in some ways. Is that still the case? for hunters in BGs or
So if you're
RBGs?
playing BM in RBGs, you're one of the strongest base hitting or base defending classes. With
Hmm.
you have two pets, you can summon the dire beast. You have a lot to keep them from taking the base from you for a long time. So BM, if you're in an RBG and you're in a map like Arathi Basin or Eye of the Storm, you're going to be the best. Your best role would be to sit the base and defend it. As far as other maps where you're fighting people like Warsong Gulch or Temple, where you're team fighting, BM is not that good. BM damage obviously relies heavily on your pets, and with 10 people fighting each other, all the AoE stuns, all the roots, all the CC, where your pets kind of just have to take it because there's so much going on. You're not going to get as much value out of being BM in those situations. So I RBG a decent amount. And if I'm on a team fight map for like those, I'll play marksman. But since we're talking about BM specifically, your best role would be to defend a base.
Nice.
Okay.
And now, on the theme of meta, we talked about this before, but hunters are known for their sustained damage output. What are some of your win conditions as a hunter? How do you actually win games?
So it depends on comp and whatnot, but like I said, BM's strengths are your crowd control when assuming you're not getting dispelled every 2 seconds. Your strong crowd control with your scatter shot, your intimidation stun, and your freezing trap, paired with really, really high sustained, almost unavoidable damage. So most of your win conditions come from just keeping that high damage up and getting cooldowns with CC on the healer till you eventually get to a point where they have nothing left.
And do you find that this works even in solo shuffle? I know there's kind of that the tendency for people to break CC, but is that the win condition universally? Try to CC the healer and just whittle down DPS?
So it really depends on where you're at in shuffle. I think one suggestion I would make for people who are trying to start shuffle and start climbing on their own, they're not very high yet, is don't actually worry about trapping as much because your team's not going to play around it. Just assume that your team's not going to play around your trap. And if you're not comfortable with the class in general, you're going to put yourself in a bad position to get it. So my recommendation to hunters who are just getting started, is to maximize your damage and watch your positioning. So you want to be, like I said, in a position where they can't easily hit you, but you still want to do as much pressure as you can put onto them. And CC, while it's really important, and at a certain point you're going to need to get on top of that, it doesn't matter as much at the lower ranks where you can just win by doing insane damage and avoiding it.
Nice. I mean, I've had that experience playing with hunters where they either they go for a trap and then someone breaks it instantly, and it's just like, oh man, and that feeling obviously sucks. On the flip side, though, I know hunters can be squishy if you can manage to connect to them. So what are some tips that you'd give to other players who are looking to beat BM hunters? Like what should you be looking out for to actually pin them down?
So you want to, they are squishy if you can catch them, which is a good BM hunter will be able to kite very long and make their position into a spot where it's not easy to hit them. So if you can, the weakness, I guess, of a BM hunter is if you can catch them to a point where they're in a stun and you have uptime, that's when you're going to get a cooldown. And say they're in a stun, even if their healer's not in CC, you're going to get something, right? You're going to get a trinket, you're going to get a cooldown. So it's just a matter of kind of getting yourself to a spot where you can catch them. So a lot of the time, it's almost not worth going the hunter from the start because if you're, blindly chasing somebody the whole game, you're not going to get very far. But I guess generally the weakness of the BM hunter is that they're very squishy if you catch them. So try to catch them.
Nice, and maybe try to see if they use their mobility. Maybe they disengage in or press Master's Call aggressively, and then you can maybe stick on them a bit easier, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. All
I,
right, and
I find this hard to believe because I've tried to kill a BM hunter and I just can't. It always seems like They feign
Yeah,
death. They got their, they got their wall. They got their this. They got their, meanwhile, you got pets chomping on your hindside. It's yeah.
Well, you're an affliction warlock, right? Like that's
Yeah.
might be one of the reasons you
sounds
can't
like a
really do
you
much.
problem, Garrissar.
What? No.
You're an affliction lock trying to dot me.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently that
Like,
was a silly mistake of mine.
how dare you try to do your damage? You know.
How dare I? So here's I'm going to steal this one because I haven't done it for a while. Is
Sure.
the one thing you would change? So imagine that you're in control of Blizzard. You can dictate whatever you want. You want a change done to hunters. What's the change that you'd like to see, Paradise?
For BM hunter
Sure, or hunters in general.
or just hunters in general.
Yeah. Anything. It doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter the reality of it. You say it, and it shall happen.
Can I say two things?
Nope. Only one
choose
thing.
one. Well, since we're on the topic of BM hunters, I'll go that route. Obviously, there's a lot of things I would want, but I would like to see a slight shift on BM hunters from their pets to the player's damage. Now, I know it's a Beastmaster. The whole fantasy is you got all these pets and they're doing all this stuff, but right now you barely Cobra shot. You're barely actually doing anything other than sicking your pets on them. So in the current state of BM, one thing I'd like to see is maybe a shift to where your pets are doing a lot of your damage, they're doing a lot of your class, but you as the player have to do something to either make your pet stronger with Cobra Shot or have an attack that you physically have to do to make your, do more damage, whatnot. Just something kind of a shift between all of your damage on your pets to kind of a not even a 50-50, maybe in a 60-40, where your pets are important, but you as the player are also doing something, it feels like.
Okay. I like it. I think that makes sense. If you're just sitting back pushing buttons, especially, I feel like part of it is the two piece though as well, right? Where you just start cycling through barb shot and kill command so often. Do you think once we get past into season 2, that's going to shift a little bit, and you might be pushing some more buttons?
Maybe I like I said, I haven't looked much at the set much of next patch other than some of the PvP stuff.
Yeah.
I would like to see the right side of the Beast Mastery tree utilized more with the Cobra Shot builds and stuff because they look really fun. They look like good ideas. It's just right now it's just not even worth trying that. But that's kind of the idea that I was looking for is the right side of the BM tree where a lot of your damage is from your Cobra Shot and your Cobra Shot in tangent buffs your pets kind of thing,
Yeah.
which is more of a thing I'm trying to go for.
Yeah, I get you. Cool. Big. What would you change?
For hunters.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Let's tone it down a little bit and focus to. Because I know what your answer is otherwise. So
I mean, I hate to. If I were to nerf hunters, because I think hunters are a bit good right now. I think that, but potentially, if I were to nerf hunters, I would probably redesign Chimeral Sting somehow. I think it's cool. It's a cool mechanic, but it just seems like a bit overkill. And I know, like, from the hunter perspective, it's probably fun to press that ability, but from the healer perspective, it's really frustrating. And what the most frustrating part about Chimeral Sting is even if you dispel the Scorpid Venom, like the first initial poison effect, you'll instantly get silenced. So you can't really counterplay the ability so well. So like maybe if you could, like from when I play Druid, I I see that ability. I want to dispel it, but I know there's no reason for me to do it because I'll just get instantly silenced. So maybe if it got nerfed to where you could actually dispel it and completely remove the following effects, that'd be nice. Or just completely remove it from BM, because I think it just gives specifically BM a bit too much control, where I think it would kind of make more sense to have that maybe in marks, like exclusively. So that'd be my change.
Okay. Honestly, I'd like them to change the pets. I mean, the families, it was neat, but I think that was quite a while ago that they did that. I think maybe another family, or even just change the pets so that this pet, a raptor pet does very raptor things. A slug pet, it's doing something very sluggy, kind of, that kind of stuff. I like to see that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think because back in the day, like your pets kind of their active ability mattered a bit more. Like I know people played like with crabs and spiders for the
Yeah.
roots and stuff like that, and it felt a bit like kind of interactive in that sense. And I think I think they just maybe overcorrected and standardized pets a bit too much.
Yep. I'd like to see a bit more, as I feel like that customization is part of the whole WoW thing, right? So
Yeah. Now everyone's running around with the raptor's name is Reban or something. Well, I guess not now.
No,
But
not
yeah,
anymore.
it was so funny because I was like, why are all these hunters naming their pets Reban? Like, were they banned? I didn't know that that's the name of the actual raptor, and they just never bothered to change it. I was like, why did all these like something's going on with these hunters? It's a conspiracy. They all have the same pet name, but no, it's the name of the raptor.
well, who knows? I think that would be kind of cool. But yeah, I think everybody running well. And I guess it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, especially in this competitive sphere of PvP, people always find that which is the thing that has that extra 0.% and everybody will end up just copying and pasting that. So still though, I'd like to see something. Anyway, talking about seeing something, why don't we talk about the news and see what has happened in the past 2 weeks?
All right. Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
All right. So PvP news, we had a couple things. I have to ask, did any of you guys watch the Team Liquid Dragonflight Arena tournament that they held on the PTR?
I watched a
Bueller?
little bit of it.
Yeah.
Not too much. I thought it was interesting that they did a PTR tournament. I think that's really cool.
Mhm.
So shout out to them for organizing that.
Yeah. It seemed as a invitational tournament with like all the PTR for. Oh, sorry. There's one team that was from it was all NA except for one, and that was from the EU team. Backfilled in because one of the NA teams couldn't make it. Anyways, if anybody didn't watch it, it was interesting. Really showcased the power of Rhett. Surprise. Quick shout out to Powermen for their winning. They won with a Rhett demo lock for the most part. So good to them. Anyways, and then I guess hot fixes. There's obviously been a number of hot fixes. Is there any that has caught anybody's attention? I'll throw Big. You're pretty quick up on what's been happening for hot fixes. Anything there that stood out to you as like a really good change?
Well, I think it was kind of interesting how Rhett got all these nerfs that they had to implement immediately, right? They dropped that post saying we're going to make all these changes to Rhett, and they're like, okay, these are going to go in the game now. And it's kind of funny how that it definitely hurt Rhett's, but not by much. Uh, as far as like in hot fixes in the past, um, I do think it is interesting too that rogues seem to get sub rogue specifically got a bit gutted from just some minor damage nerfs. But I think
Mm-hmm.
I expect like sub rogue is kind of very sensitive to any damage tuning. I think just Blizzard in general has a difficult time balancing sub rogue because it's so loaded with control that it's kind of hard to make the correct adjustment. Um, but other than
Mm-hmm.
that, no, I haven't seen any. No hot fixes really jumped out to me too much.
Okay.
Um, yeah, not so much.
I was a little surprised that they nerfed Frost DKs by 3%. That felt a little
What
bit. It sounded like a a PVE thing that ended up hurting PvP.
what's interesting right now is, I mean, there's been a dramatic meta shift, at least in the eyes of like high level players. Or at the beginning of expansion, DKs and Demon Hunters were considered really, really good. And right now, I believe they're kind of considered to be both some of the worst melee,
Hmm.
which is kind of an interesting change in class balance. And I think, I mean, specifically with Demon Hunters, I think they just kind of suffer from the Ret Arms Warrior meta a little bit. But DKs are a bit interesting. I think right now, Frost and Unholy are pretty close in relative strength. Just very few people want to play Frost because it has kind of a weird play style. You kind of need to be a bit
Yeah.
more Windwalker like or Rogue like when you play a Frost DK compared to an Unholy DK. But yeah, the balance has been kind of all over the place this expansion so far. It's only season 1, which is a bit
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it has. Quickly over to you, Paradise. Any hot fixes that jumped out to you?
Yeah, so I saw that they did a lot to Ret, and like Bigmoran said, it didn't seem to do that much. So I think I looked at them, and when I saw it, right, it all looked great. It looked like they were toning down some of their damage, nerfing some of their talents,
Mhm.
but they still need a lot more work. They need a lot more changes to be done. They nerfed BM kill command damage, which I think was needed by 10%, which offset the buff that they gave them in 10.0.7. So I think that was fine. They also nerfed Mark's damage by 4%, which I mean, like people had asked me on my stream, like, is that going to make them bad? Whatever. No, it's not going to make them bad. It's just a little tuning. So other than the Red Paladin changes and those, I don't really have much comment on anything else.
Okay. And then I guess.
The
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
the kill command nerf is funny because they buffed it and then they immediately nerfed it. Like
Yeah.
they buffed it and then like a few days later, nope, we're gonna nerf that. It's kind of a bit goofy.
It's almost like they decided they were going to give them a bit of a boost, but then didn't think about how kill command interacts with the tier set, which then I don't know. Either that or also one of the devs wanted to get their hunter to be able to top the meters for a week. I don't know. Uh Obviously 10.7 dropped. We talked about Red had the huge rework. We've talked about that already. A couple other things that were, I think, not actually really announced well. There's the conquest boxes that got added, which is really nice. And then there's the healer boxes to help, which is almost like it's like a normal PvP box. It's just like one more with some more primordial and some vendor trash. I don't know. Has I don't know, you guys felt that you feel I guess big since you like to heal. Once do you feel rewarded by this healer box if you win a match or just compete? Period.
It
No, it
feels like a
doesn't.
slap in the face.
Yeah, it doesn't really provide proper incentives. I mean, what's I'm gonna drop a hot take here.
Go for it.
I don't think healing is actually that bad right now. I kind of like the pace of the game. I understand why people wouldn't like it though. It is pretty punishing to be a healer if you're not like very in tune to predicting damage waves. Like you just have to be very precise these days as a healer. But I do think the pacing in the game has been, for the most part, pretty good this expansion. I do think that if they were to rework those boxes, they should throw in like some. Though the reward should be like the conquest boxes or something, like something that makes it easier to make an alt. Because right now I really want to play a shaman, and I should have leveled a shaman last week when they had comp stomp. And by
Oh.
level I mean set AFK in a tree trunk. But
No, you mean defend stables.
yes. So
with the BM
anyway,
hunter.
yeah, I'd love for there to be more opportunities to make alts quickly, and I
Yeah.
think that would kind of keep because I think that's the thing with healers. Healers really like to re-roll to other healers, whatever is strongest.
Mhm.
And I mean, I have my own personal disagreements with that, even though I do it myself. But I think if you had healers with the opportunity to play other healers, I think that would be one way to incentivize, the, more activity. Because
What
it is,
if
I mean, yeah.
What if the healer box had a BOA experience token where you could send it to an alt and it would just give it so much experience?
Yeah, I mean something like that, like anything to make the process of getting an alt easier. I mean,
Yeah.
again, leveling, and I say that in air quotes these days, is a matter of going to trade show. I mean, I don't know if that's considered nefarious, but man, it is very efficient and very effortless. And I'd be surprised if they allow that to stay the way it is because I mean, I, when I did it, I was like, wow, I feel dirty. Like I think I did something wrong, sitting
Yeah,
AFK
my
in this tree
friends did
getting.
that. I went AFK and I came back 2 hours later, and yep, that was it. I was done.
You're
Uh,
level 70. It's very
yeah.
goofy.
Was that at the Cobalt place?
There's a new strat, but yeah, essentially it's
Yeah.
similar.
Okay. Anyway, boxes were added. Obviously, meh, but it's at least I guess it's something. I don't know. It could be better for sure. All right. Into a couple things. For on the esports side, Team Echo has picked up Waz, Chanimals, Raikou, and Meh. So they're now going to be Team Echo. So we'll see that at the grand finals. Other one is an esports organization called Mandatory. Previously known for Valorant teams, has signed up the MDI team Monka, which is one of the top seeds for Group C for the head of global finals. So kudos to them. Another last one is the WoW Esports 2023 anthem. I don't know if you guys have, if you're watching the esports stream, and they always have that music playing. It's kind of like a techno beated up version of the WoW Esports anthem. They put it up on YouTube. So I think it's really good. I think it's always a pleasure to listen to that. And now you can take the 3-minute video on YouTube and play it back to back. One last one is the little shout out to our friend Lika. If anybody doesn't know Lika, he runs the creator and the person that makes that excellent website called Drustvar.com. Huge supporter of WoW Esports and whatnot. He recently tweeted out just the fact that it actually costs him like a few $100s a month to run the server, and obviously he's running that on laws. So just shout out to our listeners. If you have the means and you're willing to, go on and give Lika some support. Help him out, because really he has like, I think he has one Google ad maybe, and even then, like, it is very minimal. You can't even tell that it's there. So he's been running this as a passion project for years and just keeps building on it. I think he deserves support. So I'd suggest everybody going over there, give him a look. Yeah. That's it for the news that we're aware of. Now is the time to talk about a cooldown. All right, so today we're going to talk about Abomination Limb, which is the DK talent. This one is similar to a few things left over or carry over from the Shadowlands. So A-Bomb Limb, if anybody doesn't remember, it's just like for Shadowlands, they drop down a circle that has a whole bunch of limbs and just pulls people in and thrashes around and causes them damage. Depending on the spec, depends on what else it does. So aside from what I just spoke of, for blood, it gives them some extra bone shield charges. For frost, they get the ability of rhyme instantly, and then again every 6 seconds for the duration of the actual CD. And then Unholy gets Runic Corruption instantly, and then again every 6 seconds. So I guess let's talk about this. Obviously, this is a fun ability for the DK. It grips into players every second a player is pulled in, and if they're further and pulled to your location if they're further than 8 yards away from you. The same enemy can only be pulled in once every 4 seconds. I'll be honest, I don't think you can really get that far away in 4 seconds unless, I don't know. Like I don't even know what the distance is on this 20-yard range. I'm not sure if that's 20 yards for the limbs though, or 20 yards for where you. It must be 20-yard range on the limbs. So I don't think there's any class that can get 20 yards away from a DK in 4 seconds, unless I'm wrong on that. Uh, how does this help the player other than it grips them in and then what they pop another CD and just smack face?
So it's really good in tangent with other classes' abilities. So, for example, right, you're playing Death Knight and Demon Hunter, right? You group them in, you AoE stun them, then you're all cleaving them down. Or, with a Windwalker, grip them in, leg sweep everything, AoE them down. Devastation Evoker, grip them in, A-bomb limb, he's stunning them all. So on its own, it's a very strong offensive cooldown, and it becomes very strong in tangent with other classes combining with it.
Okay. Hey, why would you use A bomb lib when you could just do that with grip?
Because A-bomb limb gets everything.
Fair.
And it's
Okay.
not even all about the limbs, it's also the damage that it brings with it.
Yeah, because it does do the shadow damage over time for
And the
12 seconds.
benefit you get with it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, from a healer point of view, it's just one of those cooldowns you just need to respect, even though you might not want to respect it because it seems kind of silly. But like, I mean, from a druid's perspective, usually in solo shuffle, you're pressing tree form a bit early, anyways, and usually DKs are pressing a bomb limb early as well, and so you might as well just trade tree form into it, or at least be in tree form before they press it. Or if you're playing like a disc priest, you might want to even throw down a dome if it's being combined with other AoE abilities. It's just like one of those cooldowns you should just respect anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's typically the case. Usually, if you can survive the A bomb limb, you're pretty safe against the DK for at least quite a while. At least, it says right here it's a 2-minute cooldown. I don't know if it gets lower than that though. But you're at least safe for a minute. And as Paradise said, it's usually good in tangent with other abilities, like
Mm-hmm.
other AoE big bang spells, like leg sweep. And so it's just once it's pressed, you survive that initial wave and then you're chilling. And you usually just do that with like an AoE healing cooldown or something like tree form where you just kind of give your team a bit more bulkiness. There's no reason not to trade there because usually more damage is coming. And once you survive, the DK is like not doing anything for a while. At least that's how it seems. I know
Okay.
Frost has their 1-minute pops, but I don't know if Unholy really has the same efficiency as Frost when it comes to their pops. But
So I guess, is this like the healer has to trinket and then do whatever, or because I mean this is every 2 minutes, so I'm guessing if the healer can't trinket and then use a big cooldown as a DPS, do I have to trinket and wall? And I guess should I wait until the should I wait to trinket for after the leg sweep or after the devastation does their stun, or the DK, or sorry, the DH does their stun? Like, do I wait for that, or do I trinket wall knowing that there's going to be that other stun and the other damage after that?
So generally, what they'll do is they'll grip and then blind you, right? If it's like a fro, you have to do the blind to kind of set you up,
Yeah.
and then they do the stun. I wouldn't trinket before the stun. If you can preemptively use a defensive when you get before you like as you get gripped in, sorry, that's probably the best way to trade. So for example, if they grip, I don't know what class. If they grip you in as a druid and you grip in and make sure you're in bear form,
Mhm.
and then you can have your skin up for when they stun or whatever. But ideally, I think the best way to deal with it is for the healer to use an AOE cooldown. So, for example, if they grip the priest in, he can dome it. If they grip in the shaman, he can earthen wall.
Yeah.
Like Bigmoran said, if they grip them in, you're in tree form. You're topping your team. But it's just important that you trade something. There's no universe you're going to be able to sit the full stun with a bomb limb and the second DPS without pressing anything. Like you
All
said,
right.
you got to respect it.
Yeah, I
I like
think
it.
you could, if you're a class with like a teleport, you could probably teleport in the middle of the grip. Like if you're a warlock, I think you could probably port away. You can do that as a druid too with wild charge. And can you? I'm sure you can
Yeah,
probably
you
disengage it
can. You
too.
have to do it the second he grips you. Like
Yeah.
you have to it kind of it's a weird interaction. Like you'll go in and out real quick. If you wait too long to disengage, you'll get caught in the blind anyway. But yeah, you can do that. Like you said, it's just important if you can help it to not get triple A bomb limbed. So what they're gonna try to do is bring the DPS on top of each other and then grip the healer in so that you get all three. But if, like you said, if you can port out when you get gripped, disengage out, or make it one or two people, it's a lot easier to manage.
Okay. That's some good tips. I look forward to trying that the next time I get A bomb limbed. Um, that's about it for the segments. Now is usually where we talk about shout outs. I'm going to throw it first to you, Paradise. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out?
Shout out, other than myself.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I actually would like to shout out one person. His name is Torpid. He's a
Yep.
Twitch streamer, and now he's just been getting into YouTube. And I actually helped him make a couple hunter guides recently, and he's been
Awesome.
making guides of all of the specs, getting various high experience players of each spec, and with their knowledge, making a very tangible, well explained guide. So I'd like to shout out him on his Twitch and YouTube. I believe it's just Torpid, Torpid. He makes great hunter, or not just hunter content, but YouTube content, World of Warcraft content, and I believe he streams every day. So I would shout him out. He definitely is a good guy and deserves all the attention he can get.
Okay. This is the same as the Never Torpid. Oh no,
Yeah, so
it is Never Torpid. Okay.
yeah, well he goes by just Torpid now, I believe.
Oh, I know Torpid. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yes, we love
That's,
Torpid.
yeah. No, he's a great guy. That's awesome. Good for him. Okay, I didn't know he'd been doing that. I'm gonna have to, man. uh, between him and Skillcat, I'm gonna be like just watching YouTube for the rest of the week. Now, this is
Yeah, I highly recommend watching one of his guys. He hasn't done
yeah.
every class yet, but just his style of how he goes through all the abilities through it, it's very easy
Mhm,
to
mhm.
grasp. He does a really good job with it. So
I don't disagree. Yeah. If anybody hasn't already started following Torpid, please go give him a subscribe. Follow his Twitter. I don't think he really tweets that much though, but definitely go check out his stream. He's a great streamer, great entertainer, and just a good guy. Big. How about you? Any shout outs you want to give?
Jeez. I mean, shout out to the developer who's going to, make the decision to nerf Red Paladin. I'm giving a pre shout out.
Oh,
That,
oh, you are toxic, man. Dude.
hey, I mean, it has to be done. But I mean, again, I think I've gotten to be a bit more understanding of the development cycle and sort of the limitations. Because even though, like, I make video content, it you even doing that, you kind of understand why it might be difficult to make balance changes
Yeah.
because everything takes time, and it's a very specific type of time, and you have to devote resources to one area, which means you have to remove them from a different area. So I think it's kind of a difficult job. I think like the developers so far have been pretty good on adjusting things quickly.
Yep.
I mean, in this particular case, I know people are a bit bummed of the meta right now, but it's obviously not going to stay this way. It's going to be probably different next week. Seems to be like
Yeah.
there's hotfixes literally every week. Um, so yeah, shout out to the developer who is going to make that change to nerf Judgments of the Pure. That's probably what's going to happen. I'm guessing. Seems to be that's the key talent people are looking at right now, which is
Yeah.
why I made it a need greed pass. I think that something's going to happen in the next few days. It's going to be one of those things.
I don't disagree. I think Rets are definitely going to get another bit of tuning. I just hope that the tuning isn't overreactionary, because I feel like that this last pass, although a bunch of those nerfs looked pretty big, I feel like it kind of brought them down to where I think the devs really wanted them to begin with. And you're right, there's just some utility changes that need to be updated, because some of the utility is just when you're already strong DPS wise, and then having utility and all that other stuff, that's what surpasses, I think, is a fair way to look at it. Although I did already talk about it, I'm going to shout out Lika and Drustvar one more time. Great guy. I love I love most of his takes on Twitter. I'll say it that way. There's a few times he has some hot takes. I'm like, I'm not sure. But that's my personal opinion. By all means, go give him a follow. I think he's a great person to watch on Twitter. And if you haven't checked out Drustvar.com, go check him out. Probably one of the best third-party armory sites out there, and just has a large amount of information there. And upside is he actually has the podcast there on a player, so you can listen to Technically PvP while you're surfing the website and scoping out ParadiseOne's talent builds over there. Speaking of Paradise, why don't you for all the people that are listening at home, where exactly can they find you on the interwebs?
Okay, so I used to stream a lot. Didn't for a couple of years, had some things I was doing, but as of the last week or two, I've gone back to streaming full force. So I've been streaming almost every day. You can find me at twitch.tv/ParadiseOne_. That's with the number one. You can also follow me on Twitter, ParadiseOneWow, and my YouTube as well. I'm just starting to get back into YouTube, so if you wanted to give that a look, I haven't posted any new videos yet, but I plan on starting again soon. I have links to that on my Twitch stream as well.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear you're streaming again.
Thank you. I'm trying.
No.
Getting back into it. It's slow, but it's something I really liked. I really had a passion for a long time. Just some circumstances made it so it just made it difficult to kind of commit to that. But as of the last few weeks, I decided this is what I want to do again, and we're getting back started with it.
Well, kudos to you, because I'll be honest, I've tried. It's not easy. So kudos to you.
It's a lot more draining than you think. It takes a lot of energy.
I agree. I'm going to point Paradise to our Twitch chat, while Big can tell everybody else who's listening where they can find us.
Oh, I can absolutely do that. You can contact us directly with a tweet to @technically_PvP, or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. You can also join our discussions on the Bonus Roll Productions Discord. Also, you can check out the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at bonusroll.gg. This directory also has a review system, so head over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows.
Indeed. And as always, links for everything we talked about is going to be in the show notes. I thank you all for listening, and we'll chat with you next time. Good night, everybody.
See you.
Good night.